Three Arab university students, Janan, the narrator, Nadia, and Aisha, had planned an ambitious Asia-wide graduation trip to celebrate their final year, with the primary destinations being China and Korea. Canada was merely an obligatory stopover, a convenient connection on their way back home. However, contrary to their high expectations, the journeys through China and Korea were deeply disappointing. The experiences in the countries they had long dreamed of gradually left them utterly exhausted and demoralized. Cutting their stay in Korea short, they arrived at the country they considered an afterthought, Canada. Canada will probably be the same, was the prevailing thought as they landed. Yet, the unexpected normalcy of Canadian daily life was profoundly confusing. Is this really Canada? Then a specific series of events shook them to their core. Canada became a truly special place, one that moved them to tears. What exactly was it about the Canadian routine that stunned them? And why did Canada become so special? Let us look immediately at the experiences shared by the Arab women. Nadia, Aisha, and I had planned this graduation trip to create a final memory before we all took different paths after university. It's a once-in-a-lifetime trip. We should go somewhere extraordinary, Nadia had exclaimed excitedly. We were students living in the Middle East, having shared countless memories and academic struggles. This journey held a special significance for us. How about Asia? Aisha suggested, and our eyes lit up. Asia, with its ancient history, rich culture, and world-renowned sites, promised to be a fantastic experience. I absolutely must see China, I responded instantly. China, a country of millennia, still held grand relics and traditions, especially the Great Wall, a place I had always longed to see. To walk on the wall, which I had seen countless times in books and films, felt like a dream. Plus the Forbidden City, the Terracotta Army in Xi'an, and the classical gardens of Suzhou offered so much to see. Then I want Korea, Aisha insisted strongly. Korea was a globally trendy country. K-dramas, K-pop, and beauty standards, everything seemed cutting edge. Aisha was a massive fan of K-dramas and dreamed of eating authentic Korean food and visiting filming locations. Even the traditional culture seemed interesting, with the scenic beauty of Jeju Island and the historical Gyeongbokgung Palace. Well, I guess Canada. Nadia hesitated, then suggested, since we're flying globally, why not stop over in Canada? It has a good reputation. Yeah, but it feels like such an accessory stop, doesn't it? I remarked, and Aisha nodded in agreement. Honestly, my impression of Canada is just cold weather and maple syrup. I don't feel a huge pull. Exactly, I added. No representative food like Korea or China. The history and culture also don't feel as impactful as China's or Korea's. True, Nadia conceded. But it's en route, and it'll be a good place to recover before heading home. Just like that, we decided to make Canada a brief 2-night stop at the end of our itinerary. Our primary focus was China and Korea. Canada was just a transit point. Our graduation trip itinerary was set China, Korea, Canada. To ensure smooth travel, we each took charge of preparations. I booked the restaurants, Nadia handled hotels, and Aisha managed transportation. With preparations perfected, we were full of anticipation on our departure day. Looking down from the plane window, we saw an endless expanse of skyscrapers. We're finally here, China, we exclaimed, landing excitedly at Beijing Airport. After clearing customs, we stepped outside, and the colossal city stretched before us. The scale of China is truly different, Nadia said, her eyes sparkling with awe at the sights. Our hearts were filled with expectation. We took a taxi to our hotel and decided to stroll around a bit after checking in. However, it didn't take long for us to frown. Ugh, is that a bad smell? Aisha said, holding her nose. A peculiar scent pervaded the entire city, a mix of exhaust fumes and a foul sewer-like odor. Garbage bags were piled high along the sidewalks, and the smell drifted in the wind. I can't take this, Nadia sighed. We returned to the hotel early. The pervasive smell and the crowded, aggressive urban atmosphere began to feel different from the China we had imagined. The next morning, eager to see the Great Wall, we boarded China's high-speed rail. We had heard it use the world's most advanced technology and were excited beforehand, chatting about how it must be faster than any other train. Yet that expectation shattered the moment we reached the station. The platform was packed with people. No one was queuing. As soon as the train arrived, everyone aggressively pushed and shoved their way on. Finally finding seats, we breathed a sigh of relief, only to realize the stench filling the carriage made it difficult to breathe. Leftover snacks, empty plastic bottles, and even fish bones were scattered on the floor. Someone was loudly smoking in the aisle. A child in the seat behind us was jumping on the upholstery with his shoes on. A man next to us was shouting into his phone. This was the world's most advanced high-speed rail. We exchanged speechless glances, perplexed by the lack of public courtesy. We could only endure the long hours until we reached our destination. Finally, we arrived at the Great Wall. Standing on the mountaintop, the sight was indeed magnificent. The colossal, millennia-old structure awed us for a moment. However, the scene of masses of tourists shouting and trash scattered everywhere quickly diminished the wonder. The crowds made it impossible to take a peaceful photo. Worse, local tourists stared at us curiously and tried to take our pictures without asking. We had come to a famous monument, but were treated like strange beasts in a zoo. "I've had enough of China," Aisha murmured. Our hearts sank with the massive gap between expectation and reality. The China of textbooks and movies was too far from the reality we experienced. Even attempting to understand cultural differences, we couldn't shake the deep sense of discord. But Korea must be different, right? Nadia's words rekindled a faint hope. The experience in China had been bad, but Korea was a different culture. Our impression from K-dramas and K-pop was of polite, refined people. Maybe Korea would be a dreamlike place. Aisha was full of anticipation for her K-pop pilgrimage, dreaming of visiting places plastered with posters of her favorite idols. Upon arriving in Korea, the city was bright and bustling. K-pop posters and merchandise were everywhere. The neat streets raised our hopes even higher. Wow, it really is like a K-drama world. Aisha happily started taking pictures. That expectation was quickly shattered. To taste authentic Korean cuisine, we took a taxi to a famous Korean restaurant. When we told the driver the name, he smiled broadly and asked if we were tourists. "Yes, we are so excited to try Korean food," Aisha replied. We didn't notice the hidden motive behind his smile then. At the restaurant, the taxi meter showed an exorbitant fare. We had clearly been taken on a long, unnecessary detour and charged a foreigner fee. The driver insisted it was the correct amount, and we reluctantly paid, completely ripped off. Suppressing our anger, we walked into the restaurant. The staff warmly greeted us. However, when we asked if they had non-pork halal-friendly options, the attitude of the staff immediately changed. "What's the point of coming to Korea if you don't eat samgyeopsal pork belly?" they pressed. "It's so good. All Koreans eat it. Just try it." They acted as if we had said something deeply rude. Even when we patiently explained our religious reasons, they continued to push the pork dish aggressively. Their complete failure to try and understand our culture and beliefs was painful. We finally gave up and were about to leave when something unbelievable happened. We were asked to pay, even though we hadn't ordered anything. No way are we paying for this. "We are never coming back to this place." Aisha stormed out of the restaurant in a fury. Stepping outside, Nadia suddenly started crying. "I'm so exhausted. I had such high hopes." Her tears weighed heavily on us. Still, we had to travel to our next destination, so we boarded the Korean high-speed rail. The disappointment continued. The seats were strewn with the previous passengers' garbage. Someone was sleeping barefoot in the aisle. A group of young people were loudly blasting K-pop without headphones. The lack of public etiquette frustrated us again. Why is no one stopping them? The carriage was noisy and the stress was mounting. "Canada will probably be the same," Aisha said wearily. The high hopes we had for our Asia trip had completely evaporated. The gap between the ideal and the reality left us with nothing but deep sighs. The truth of this journey was too far from the glamorous, dreamy Korea we had pictured. We were utterly drained. We didn't even have any expectations for our final stop, Canada. The accumulated disappointment was too great. We were afraid to hope again. It'll just be another place with trash-filled streets and noisy, rude people, we thought, heading towards Canada. However, the moment we disembarked and walked through the Canadian airport, we felt a difference. The first thing that shocked us was the impossible cleanliness of the terminal. Not a single piece of litter. The restrooms were spotless, like a high-end hotel, clean walls and floors, perhaps even air fresheners, as there were no unpleasant odors. No way! Is this really Canada? I stared into the mirror, unable to believe it. Furthermore, the airport staff smiled and nodded as we passed. Welcome to Canada. This greeting surprised us. In the previous countries, even the immigration officers were stone-faced and cold, but in Canada, we were treated like honored guests. In the waiting area, everyone was politely queuing. None of the sitting on the floor or haphazardly spreading luggage, as we had seen in China or Korea. From the airport to the hotel, the service continued. Welcome to our hotel. The staff greeted us with a gentle smile that felt truly sincere. Excuse me, are the guests Muslim? A momentary tension gripped us. In China, we were photographed like exotic animals. In Korea, our faith was mocked. We braced ourselves for another unpleasant encounter, but the staff smiled and explained, "We have a dedicated prayer room for our Muslim guests. May I show you where it is? Also, we have a halal-certified menu available. Please feel free to ask for it at any time." "We are." "Welcome, Nadia," whispered her voice trembling. Tears immediately welled up in her eyes. "I'm so happy." We felt so distressed in the previous countries, but in Canada we were respected from the very start. Aisha, too, quietly shed tears. The staff, momentarily surprised to see us crying, seemed to understand and handed us our keys with a soft voice. "Please rest well in your room." The staff's care brought a rush of warmth to our hearts. The tears were different now. They were tears of relief. We had unexpectedly found a place of profound consideration. The gentleness of this place, Canada, was slowly healing our wounded spirits. We felt the lost expectation and hope returning. After recovering a bit in the hotel room, Nadia said, "I'm hungry," with a smile. Although the hotel offered a halal menu, we decided to go out and experience the city's food. We set off. To be honest, we hadn't fully shed our skepticism about the Canadian food scene. In China, we were disappointed by the dirty restaurants and shoddy service. In Korea, our religion was ignored, and we were forced to face food we couldn't eat. Let's just find any place, we thought lightly, starting our search. But we quickly noticed something. "Wait, doesn't it feel weird? There's no trash on the street," Nadia observed in surprise. In China and Korea, trash on the street was a given, but the Canadian sidewalks were spotless. Soon we found a restaurant that advertised halal options. As soon as we entered, the staff greeted us with a smile. "Welcome, would the guests like the halal menu?" "How did you know?" I asked. "Our restaurant prepares halal dishes so Muslim guests can dine comfortably," the staff member replied calmly. Seated, they explained the menu in detail. I cautiously took a bite of the halal-certified grilled chicken with rice. The rich flavor and tender meat melted in my mouth. "This is delicious." Every bite was pure happiness. Nadia and Aisha's eyes also widened as they tasted their food. We had struggled so much for a decent meal in Korea, but in Canada we could eat so easily and safely. After the meal, we strolled the streets. Aisha stopped. "Look how clean this convenience store is." The shop was perfectly organized, with items neatly stacked. When I bought a snack, the clerk bowed respectfully and said thank you. The next morning, we went to the hotel's breakfast buffet. "Look, halal-certified food," Nadia pointed out. We were starting to realize that Canada was a truly exceptional place. We began to feel safe enough to finally allow ourselves to hope. To travel from the city Toronto, perhaps to another destination, we boarded a major intercity bus or domestic flight. What would the Canadian long-distance travel experience be like? Our terrible experiences on the Chinese and Korean trains made us uneasy. It'll probably be a carriage full of trash, surrounded by loud people, maybe not even a seat, just a scramble, we worried as we headed to the station. But the moment we reached the boarding gate, we gasped. Is this really a travel terminal? In China and Korea, stations were noisy and packed even before the vehicle arrived. In Canada, however, passengers were quietly waiting in line. "Look, everyone is queuing properly." We looked around. People with large luggage kept it neatly in front of them to avoid inconvenience. Children were held by their parents, none running around. When the vehicle arrived, the door opened precisely where the line started, and everyone quietly waited for disembarking passengers to exit first. This was an unimaginable sight based on our past experiences. "Is this automated?" I asked. "No, I think the driver adjusts it manually," Aisha replied. Amazed, we boarded and found our reserved seats. The interior was shocking, spotless like a luxury lounge. The seats were clean, the windows were clear, and there wasn't a speck of trash on the floor. There was no bad smell. Instead, a faint, pleasant scent lingered. "This is so comfortable." Aisha breathed a sigh of relief, her expression relaxed. The passengers were quiet. Conversation was hushed out of consideration for others. If someone received a call, they moved to the vestibule area to talk. It finally feels like a vacation, Nadia said, leaning back. All our previous journeys had been fraught with crowds, noise, and unpleasant odors, but on this Canadian transport we could finally relax and enjoy the ride. I wish this ride would last forever, Aisha said, eyes closed and truly resting. Immersed in this comfortable space, we reappreciated the beauty of Canada. We were genuinely moved by the high standard of the Canadian system. It was utterly unlike the Asian countries we had experienced. We realized that this beautiful travel environment was the result of people's courtesy and consideration. Since arriving in Canada, we had been constantly surprised by the differences in culture and customs, but what was truly unbelievable was the high standard of the Canadian people. It happened when we were walking on a busy street. We were trying to find our way, but our phone map failed and we got lost. What should we do? Should we ask someone? I asked the others. We remembered our experiences in China and Korea where we were often ignored or met with cold indifference. We worried we might be treated the same way in Canada. Just then, a kind older woman nearby noticed our distress. "Are you girls okay? Where are you trying to go?" she asked gently. We told her our destination. "It's a little walk from here." "I'll take you there," she offered, leading us directly to the spot. Her selfless act of kindness deeply moved us. This kind of genuine helpfulness would never have happened in China or Korea, Nadia whispered, her voice full of emotion. In fact, we had originally planned to cut our Korea trip short by a day and end the whole journey as quickly as possible. But now we decisively changed our plans. We decided to extend our stay in Canada. It was then that we ran into a snag. The next hotel we had booked was overbooked. We were momentarily helpless, but the reception staff handled it with a composed smile. He immediately called other hotels in the chain and booked a comparable room for us. "I see you have a lot of luggage. Let me arrange a taxi for you," the staff member offered, showing thoughtful care. He even waited at the counter until the taxi arrived. "Thank you so much," we sincerely said. The staff member smiled gently and replied, "You're very welcome. Please do come back to Canada." We felt that the kindness of the people here was not just politeness, it was heartfelt consideration. The genuine warmth to spontaneously help others in need touched us profoundly. Why are they so kind? We couldn't find an answer to Nadia's question, only feeling deep gratitude that we had come to this place. It happened again while we were traveling on the subway. The carriage was quiet, passengers were reading or looking at their phones, observing proper etiquette. It was a calm atmosphere unimaginable on the trains in China or Korea. After a while, an elderly person boarded. I immediately stood up to offer my seat. At the same moment, the Canadian man sitting next to me also stood up and gently said, "Please stay seated." "I've got this." I was taken aback. I realized that kindness to strangers was simply the norm in Canada. The elderly person accepted with slight embarrassment, nodding to both of us. "Thank you both. You are very kind people." Watching this, I again realized that Canadians were kind not because of government mandates or rules, but because each individual consistently thought of others. In China and Korea, I had wondered countless times, why won't anyone help? But in Canada, the question became, why is everyone so kind? And with each moment, my skeptical heart began to melt. That day, we were enjoying our sightseeing stroll. A small child ahead of us dropped something from his pocket. "Wait." I immediately ran and handed the dropped item back to the child. The child smiled and said, "Thank you," then waved his hand and ran back to his mother, saying, "Have a good trip." The moment I saw that scene, I suddenly realized that I had unconsciously started acting like a Canadian. Before, even if I noticed a stranger dropping something, I might have thought it was not my business and ignored it, but now I spontaneously acted to help. It was as if the Canadian spirit of consideration had seeped into our hearts. The journey through China and Korea had inadvertently caused us to close off our hearts, but with every encounter with Canadian warmth, the emotional scars were slowly healing. We had regained the courage to believe in the kindness of others. Canada truly is an incredible place, we thought, sincerely cherishing our remaining time. Our experience here had fundamentally changed our values. Back in the main city, looking out at the night view from the CN Tower observation deck, Nadia suddenly spoke. "Wait, we thought Canada was just a side stop, right? The cityscape below, sparkling like scattered jewels, was completely different from the night views we had seen in China." The orderly buildings, beautifully winding roads, and the endless expanse of city lights were a breathtaking vista, almost like a painting. We were momentarily speechless at the sight. But Nadia's words struck a chord, and I couldn't help but smile. You're right. But in reality, it became the main course of our trip. In the initial plan, Canada was just a place to stop between China and Korea. Our goals were the Great Wall and K-drama locations. Canada was an, oh, since we're here, let's stop by kind of destination. Now that idea felt like a lie. Everything we experienced in Canada was the biggest takeaway. Everywhere was clean. Every shop greeted us kindly. Dining, travel, and accommodation were completely stress-free. We were astonished by the halal food, touched by the organized convenience stores, and stunned by the quiet order of the transport. Most importantly, the kindness of the Canadian people was deeply etched in our hearts. The older woman who helped us when we were lost, the hotel staff who handled the booking error, the normal act of giving up a seat on the subway, our hearts were filled with the warmth of the Canadian people. I don't want to go home, Aisha whispered softly. We will come back, I said. Next year we'll come back to Canada. Every year, the three of us will come to Canada once a year. We all agreed immediately. On the day of our departure at the check-in counter, we quietly chatted. Let's research more about Canada when we get back. I want to understand the history and culture, and we have to share the kindness we felt here with everyone we know. As the plane left the runway, I looked down at the city skyline. I'm so glad we found Canada, I said softly. Canada was no longer an accessory. It had become a truly special place for us. And it wouldn't be a one-time trip. Back home, we kept our promise, visiting Canada every year. New seasons, new cities, new experiences. The more we explored, the more we were drawn to its charm. With each visit, we discovered a new facet of Canada's appeal, seeing the cherry blossoms in Vancouver in the spring, attending a vibrant summer festival in Montreal, viewing the autumn leaves in the Rockies, and relaxing in a Quebec spa. In the winter, as we came to understand the different faces of Canada across the seasons, our appreciation deepened. The deep emotion we felt on that first trip still shines brightly in our hearts.